If you're anything like me, you bought Sonic Unleashed for the Wii for the sheer sake of actually doing something with the console. That's not to say that Super Smash Bros. Brawl isn't a fun game, but it's been out for a year now. Sonic Unleashed came out right around the time Wii owners got fed up with replaying their own games and yearned for a game that doesn't have the word shovelware written all over it. So it's hard to tell whether Sonic Unleashed is a really fun game or whether I'm simply desperate for a quality release on Wii. Or perhaps it's the low expectations we have for 3D Sonic games these days. Sega's had problems figuring out what to do with Sonic, so they've gone the Jackson Pollock route to creative design. Throw a bunch of paint on the wall and see what sticks. Therefore, Sonic Team has assembled a video game Frankenstein, a mishmash of other game ideas in an attempt to be brilliant. As you probably know already, Sonic Unleashed's main gimmick is its day and night system, almost straight out of the Ocarina of Time. Well, if you really want to go really far back, then it's Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. The day levels are typical Sonic platforming goodness, in which you run through the areas at a blazing speed. For the night levels, Sonic transforms into his werehog form, which resembles more of a beat-em-up game. Simon's Quest had a lot of monsters, but did it have werehogs? No. See, that's kind of different. I don't want to go into too many gameplay specifics because you probably don't care. Either that or you've played the game and you just want to hear a commentary on it. I'll just summarize the essence of both types of gameplay and let you be the judge. First, the daytime levels. If there's anything Sega learned from Sonic and the Secret Rings, it's that 3D Sonic games are structured more like a racing game than a platforming game. That's right, you heard me, a racing game. Your objective is essentially to go from point A to point B in the quickest time possible. You definitely see this design philosophy in the daytime levels. Every stage has a main route, almost like a track in a racing game. But they throw in a lot of alternate routes which are either quicker or contain hidden items. Either way, these paths always lead back to the main route. Always. So when you're playing most daytime levels, you'll probably notice several alternative routes as you whiz by them. You have an option of turning around and exploring them, but once again, they all go back to the exact same place. So what's really the point? You just play the level again and focus on taking that route next time. I mean, you wouldn't just turn around in a racing game to explore an alternate route. You just remember it for the next lap. Speaking of level design, it's worth noting that some of the daytime stuff is just ridiculously awesome to look at. Some of it is just the sheer insanity of the combos, almost like a roller coaster. I've read the argument that Sega should have made the entire game consisting of the daytime stuff, but I think that's pretty short-sighted. As awesome as the daytime levels are, there's not enough varying gameplay to make it worthwhile. As you progress through Sonic Unleashed, the game feels more and more repetitive. Wish through multiple speed boosters, bounce through multiple springs, fly through the rings, switch to a 2D perspective for a while. Multiple enemy combos, blah 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 blah. That's the problem with modeling a game like a racing game when you move forward all the time. In Sonic Unleashed, there aren't any other racers. If that doesn't seem like a big deal, consider the following example. Imagine buying a new version of Mario Kart. Now imagine they removed all the Grand Prix and multiplayer modes and left you only with Time Attack. Yeah, there's 30-some tracks to screw around with, and they're all entertaining to look at, but you're still essentially just turning left, right, and using an occasional mushroom. That's a bit simplistic, but you get my point. The daytime levels in Sonic Unleashed can be a little shallow and samey after time. In fact, they literally use the same mini-boss several times throughout the game, with no variation. In some ways, I like the fact that the nighttime levels break up the action just to switch things up a bit. Speaking of which, the night levels resemble another famous game, which isn't Simon's Quest or Mario Kart. You're probably expecting a comparison to God of War, but I'm not going to do that. Besides, we already did the God of War thing during the daytime with the sheer number of QuickTime events. No, a better comparison for the night levels would be the classic Double Dragon for the NES. Why? Because both games are beat-em-ups with some painful platforming gameplay shoehorned in. In terms of gameplay, the combat in the werehog levels is pretty decent. The combo system is pretty fun and can lead to some mindless whacking of enemies. If you're using the remote nunchuck combo, the gameplay will remind you a little of Okami for the Wii. You flick either the remote or nunchuck to swing your right and left fists. These controls are a little wonky at first, but you can get the hang of them easily. Players who opt for the GameCube controller will find fighting a lot easier as you simply press the L and R buttons to attack. Overall, the only problem with the fighting is that it's not challenging enough. There are very few moments where you're worried about running out of health. I've had this game for about a month now, and I died for the very first time today from running out of health. The biggest complaint for the night levels that I've read is that it's too slow. Well, yes, in comparison to the day levels, they're slow. The key word here is comparative. Comparative. Adjective. Estimated by comparison. Not positive or absolute. Relative. If you compare Sonic Unleashed to most any platforming game, you couldn't call the night level slow. If you double tap the control stick, Werehog Sonic runs at a pretty brisk speed. He can also double jump, which lends itself nicely to making some huge long jumps across chasms. When the game sticks to the formula of running, jumping, and fighting, the night levels are really fun. Unfortunately, the double tap running makes precise platforming ridiculous, which is precisely what the later levels require. The platforms and fighting areas suddenly become smaller, so that accidental double tap, it'll now hurl you into a pit. I understand adding a challenge is important to the later stages, but pinpoint accuracy isn't the best fit for this engine. Some of the level choices just seem like a big screw you to the player. I mean really, whirlpools. This level isn't comparatively slow, they're absolutely slow. Couple that with pole climbing and swinging puzzles, and the night level is slow to a crawl. In such exploration-based gameplay, you're bound to climb up and down some poles. In these early stages, these obstacles are used sparingly and aren't too bad. However, the later levels consist of entire sections of clutching the grab button, hoping not to fall to your death as you swing across obstacles. Unlike the daytime levels, the nighttime gameplay feels more robust and there's more stuff to do with it. Some of the best stuff about it was exploring the secret areas, since we don't have that opportunity in the daytime. Especially when this game sports the best camera work ever in a Sonic game. That's not really a great feat, but is worth noting. The camera is almost always where you want it to be. In fact, Sega used that camera to let me explore a giant temple, not slowly hop across tiny platforms. Before ending this review, there's a bunch of random things worth commenting on. First, I just have to mention the new sidekick Chip. He has a couple of funny moments during the more serious cutscenes, but overall, he just annoys the crap out of me. Sonic games are already cheesy, but he drops this game into a Saturday morning cartoons cheesy. Some of his lines are so heart-meltingly corny that even the Full House writers would groan. And that's a pretty tough feat to do. And what's up with the insistence on giving everybody chocolate?
Well, I'm glad you're back. Want some chocolate?
No, Chip, we don't want anything from you. Second, the village system. Before going into the levels, you have to talk to several villagers who will direct you where to go. It's completely and utterly pointless. It's tough to completely criticize it though, because I can't think of a more efficient way to advance the plot. I mean, wading through hub areas would be even more annoying. The best thing about the villages is that it gets that plot stuff out of the way relatively quickly. Third, it's worth noting that Sonic Unleashed has an interesting system for collecting extra lives. You start out with only 3 lives, but they all regenerate when you start a new level. In addition, you can find extra lives in the unlockable temple areas. Once you get an extra life, you keep it for the rest of the game. For example, instead of starting every single level with only 3 lives, now you have 4. It's amazing! Since the later nighttime levels are complete unfair garbage, these extra lives are almost mandatory to find. They're almost like hit points. The last thing worth mentioning is the music. It's just okay. This is the first Sonic title in a while that isn't chock full of cheesy rock music. There's one main song, but everything else is either orchestrated or remixed stuff. That being said, only 2 songs stuck out for me. The main orchestrated theme is nice and grand. It reminds me a little like the Mario Galaxy theme, but whatever. I like that theme and I like this one too. The other standout piece is the Chun Nan Day theme. It's got a nice hooky melody. Overall, Sonic Unleashed somehow manages to combine Mario Kart with Double Dragon, with a bit of Simon's Quest and God of War in there. And somehow it turned out to be pretty good. It's not going to blow your mind with an innovative gameplay, but it's still a fun diversion. A little inconsistent, but still worthwhile. If you're looking for an overall score, I'll give it a 13.5 out of 17. It's not quite a 14, but that's still pretty good.